I'm your instructor, Bram Duffy, and I'd like to welcome you to COM 1100, COM 1100, Human Communication. This course is a broad approach to communication skills, and it includes things like intrapersonal, interpersonal, small group, and public speaking. And by completing this course, you are going to be able to get like an understanding of the parts of the communication process, how it works, and how experts study communication. Also, you'll be able to reflect on your own communication skills and find ways to make them better. Um, you'll be able to learn how to adapt your communication based on the situation and the people that are involved. And know the difference between messages sent through technology, versus in person, and how both the senders and receivers shape that communication. So, all right, so let's talk about graded work. Your success in this class will be based on your performances, based on like exams, quizzes, your course participation and written work, and the stuff that you do like in the assignments and on discussion boards. When we do this class together, there's not going to be any bonus work offered, and I also don't do any grading on a curve. So what that means is that someone else's grade does not affect your grade. If someone does better, it won't, or worse, it doesn't change you. And the other thing as far as course policies to know off the bat is that I don't take any coursework that's late. So if you have to be late with something, it's important to email me and communicate with me before the due date. And the preferred way to do that is to email me directly to the email account. So not through D2L, but through the bduffy@kennesaw.edu direct email. And so if I have an email from you before the due date, it gives me an option or an ability to help you or to try to see about extending if possible. But that's only in those cases where I get an email beforehand. The cases where that won't be able to work are during the final exam period. So there are 2 exams in this course, and you can access them in the quiz section of D2L during the time when the exams are offered. The first exam is a midterm exam. It's going to cover the first 7 chapters, so chapter 1 through 7. And then the second exam is going to be a final exam, and it'll do chapters 8 through 14, so that'll be the rest of the chapters. So that's for the exam section. Quizzes for this course, there are 2 quizzes, and quiz number 1 is going to cover chapters 1 through 4, and then quiz number 2 will cover chapters 8 through 11. So when it's time for those quizzes, you'll be able to access them in the quiz section of D2L as well. The other thing that we'll be doing in this class together is working on a journal throughout the time. And what happens is that each week you're going to write a paragraph about the life application of this course. And so these weekly journal notes will then be used to create a final course journal that you'll turn in at the end of the course. And so that's something that you'll want to keep up with, because it's actually a very easy assignment if you do it in the moment, right? But it's very difficult to recall your thoughts about, those application points later. The other assignment that you'll be doing is a student presentation during Unit 12. And it's going to be a very simple presentation that you'll be producing, that you can use a computer, laptop, cell phone to produce. And you're going to create a mock public speaking event. And the way it works is that I require that you not do any editing. So it's similar to how I am with you now in this video. There's no editing. We just go. And so for that assignment, you will be working to create a link so that you can share, and that will be coming up in Unit 12. So the other graded work is participation. So each week that we have a unit activity, we will also have a discussion board. And so each work activity will be worth 2 points each. And how this works is that you get 1 point for an initial discussion board post, and then another point you get when you post the class discussion post. And that's where you read your classmates' post and you choose at least one of them to reply to and elevate the topic. So that's where you can communicate on what they are talking about by offering examples or talking about other directions that could apply. And so elevating that topic is what happens. And so many online classes have an initial post and then 2 follow-up posts with students. I only require 1. So that means that this is 2 points, and your initial post is 1 point and your follow-up point is another point. These discussions have to be completed each week before midnight on Sunday night each week so that I can give you credit for those. Okay, and so it's something that you are going to be doing as we continue through the course. You heard me talk about how there was a point something in there, right? Something's worth 2 points and 1 point. I've made the grading for this class really easy because everything counts as a point towards the same thing as a percentage. So I want to invite you to look through your syllabus and see how these different assignments are weighed as far as point value, and know that if something is worth 10 points, then that would be 10% of your grade, right? If something's worth 2 points, it'll be worth 2% of your grade. So the point system is set up so that it equals the same as the percentage, and so that you know automatically that how many points you can lose or how many points you need to gain to reach a particular goal. And so that's the kind of stuff that I think is important just to talk to you directly about when it comes to the syllabus. There's other information about ethics and about getting help for different problems and understanding when the drop periods are. All of that is in your syllabus, along with a full, at the end, it has a full weekly recap. It's like a checklist of dates and things that you'll be doing for this course. And so if you have that, I would suggest that you go ahead and I know a lot of times we don't have things on paper, but the syllabus is a good idea. Just go ahead and print it, and so that you have it. And that way you are set to go and prepare for our work together. So there are 14 different units in our class that we're going to be talking about. And I just want to briefly mention each one, and so that we can begin this first week already thinking about what we'll be doing together and how we're going to be approaching these topics. Because, it's sort of one of those things where we think, gosh, I already communicate all the time, every day. I'm a good communicator. But it's not just about the fact that you can do it. It's about how you do it and the thought that goes into the different mini dynamics. So in Unit 1, which will be covered during the second week of class, it talks about the individual and society. Communication shapes the way people interact with society, and it influences relationships and identity and understanding. So we're going to explore this connection by examining key communication models. In Unit 2, we look at identities in communication. And identity deeply impacts how we communicate and shapes perceptions, biases, and interactions. And and also matters in diverse contexts. So we're going to investigate that by even looking at contemporary issues like Islamophobia and Black Lives Matter, so that we can get an understanding of how different identities really apply to communication. In Unit 3, we'll talk about communication and perception. And perception governs how we interpret messages and connect with others. And that's a lot of times it's affected by different biases, like things that really change our view of what's happening. So we're going to work to uncover how factors like power dynamics and cultural influences and even economic status can shape perception. And to do this, we're going to use real world examples to sort of bring these ideas to life. When we get into Unit 4 to talk about verbal communication, that's the use of words to share meaning. And it's central to connecting with others and expressing ideas. So we're going to analyze the characteristics of language, explore and look at different linguistic issues, and discuss challenges like digital hate speech or different policies out there, that are used by social media platforms. In Unit 5, we'll talk about nonverbal communication, and that's like those gestures, facial expressions, and tone expressions that go beyond the meaning of words that do have profound influence on the interactions that we have. And so we'll explore that role in creating social reality and look at things like micro expressions and be able to look at lie detection as a field. In Unit 6, we talk about conversational skills. And effective conversations require awareness and really perspective taking, specific interactional skills. And we're going to work to build these abilities by practicing ways to, apologize and do things like initiate meaningful dialogues, discuss consent, and identify manipulative tactics sometimes that people use. And at the same time, emphasize how in-person interactions work in those respects. In Unit 7, we'll talk about listening and responding. Listening is really an active process, and it's something that's distinct from just hearing. It's the key to understanding and connecting. So we're going to examine different listening styles and research strategies for long-term listening, okay? And that helps address things like polarization and privilege in meaningful ways. So that's really some of the topic view of listening. In Unit 8, we'll be looking at intercultural communication. And intercultural communication involves navigating different perspectives, values, and experiences across cultures. We're going to analyze demographic shifts and migration patterns and hostility towards minority groups. And that all helps us look at the complexities of intercultural interactions. In Unit 9, we'll be looking at communication in relationships. And relationships evolve through communication. And that evolution is shaped by trust and shared experiences and even emotional expression. So we're gonna study theories of relationship developing and even tackle some current topics like gaslighting and intimate partner violence. And so we'll do this while examining how communication builds or sometimes breaks connections with people. When we get into Unit 10, talking about small group communication, that's going to focus on collaboration and collective decision making in teams. So we're going to explore techniques for effective virtual teamwork, leadership, and conflict resolution. and particularly in the looking at digital and professional environments. In Unit 11, we are going to tackle organizational communication. And organizational communication structures how messages flow within and between teams. And that shapes workplace dynamics and culture. So we'll explore strategies for handling those kinds of organizational interactions. When we get to Unit 12, we'll be looking at public communication, and public communication involves sharing messages on a broader sense, right? And so we use audiences to inform, persuade, or inspire. So we're going to study how rhetoric and persuasion works, and we're going to also look at contemporary examples, like what things that are being debated in current media, current news, what's happening in the world. When we get to Unit 13, we'll be looking at mass media communication. And mass media communication shapes societal narratives and public opinion. That influences how people perceive the world. So we're going to investigate media ownership and hostile media effects and even trends in media consumption. So one of the things we'll be talking about is the Disney-Fox acquisition and the impact that it had. The final unit is Unit 14 that we have, called Interactive Media. And interactive media allows people to really interact by connecting, sharing in this digital space. And it's something that's transforming communication. So we're going to look at some of the consequences of social media, the choices that are out there, and look at maybe like problematic use and consider how AI is changing the online communication dynamics. Well, not just in personal spaces, but also professional contexts. So all in all, the sections that we're going to be exploring together are exciting, and I think that when we get through this course, we're going to have a new way to look at communication as not just something that we do, but something that we are, something that we have, something that we can use to our advantage to get what we want out of life, to be able to know how to best make friends, know how to best give back to others. And this is an important understanding approach. And so that's why I'm really happy that you're here with me and to look at this foundational communication course of human dynamics here with me this semester.